sci-esque conspiracy.
Hello, and welcome to another Sunday Superversive live stream. I am your host Ben Wheeler, and today I am with both my co-host Anthony Marquetta and my lovely audio editor Ken Dickinson, as fair as he is Scottish. Today we're doing a Pinkerton's Ghost Q and A. Okay, that's still attached in. Uh, and if you have any questions, we're just going to talk about it. Uh, I've reached out to our patron, who we intend to treat like a king if he actually shows up, um, and other people who might show up besides. How are you guys doing today?
Going reasonably well, thank you. Anthony?
I'm wonderful. I have a new mic.
It's
That
it's
sounds beautiful.
absolutely fantastic.
No one is more excited by that new mic than I am.
I
Oh,
agree.
hey, look in our chat, guys.
Huh? Oh,
Look in our live
he's
stream.
here, King,
Yay! For once in the future,
our
Oh,
true
the
patron.
patron.
Arthur.
There we go. All right, let's have those questions at knife point. You better have some questions.
This is
Ah,
a long test screen noise
right.
as we wait.
Boop.
Maybe a little music. Dee dee
D-
dee 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 dee.
My
Some.
first thought was the Jeopardy music.
Oh yeah.
Dun, dun, dun,
I was thinking more Careless Whisper, really.
I was I was thinking more like dee 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 mana mana.
Ba, ba, da, ba.
Dun,
And
dun.
we
bum,
shut down by
bum,
Disney.
bum, ba-dum, bum,
Disney,
bum,
no.
ba-dum, bum, bum, bum,
That's
bum,
right.
ba-da.
Disney Channel, what are you doing?
Haha.
I don't want to play with you.
That's terrifying.
Excellent impersonation.
Yeah,
Oh well.
as if we've ever played with Disney.
Yet. So,
I
Ben,
mean,
do you have any list of actual questions that you have thought of independent of our viewers?
so I actually do. The big one is sort of like questions about the world and stuff like that around Pinkerton's Ghosts. The world for Pinkerton's Ghosts is not nearly as complex as I pretend it is. It's just that our little Pinkertons running around don't have nearly as much say over the world as other organizations do. For example, DAYS, the Department of American Zoological Extraordinaries, is an FBI branch that goes by different names by different people. And they basically, handle a lot more big picture stuff than the Pinkertons. But you got to think of Pinkertons like your local, like, exterminator. Um, you don't really call an exterminator when 1,000 ducks are descending upon you or something like that. You need to call something like park services or something like that. You know what I mean? Um,
I
you
don't know,
know
Thousand Ducks does kind of sound like the Ghostbusters motif. They really were just exterminators. Put the
exactly.
motif backwards.
Let's see here. Cordell Mitchell says the first one came to mind is how you guys maintain drive to write regularly on the show, and what other projects. Also, one of you is really quiet. I'm going to up the volume for you both. Ooh.
Actually, when it comes to drive, I think I could take that question real quick. Uh, I don't know. Basically, our drive stays by the fact that our wonderful and delightful editor in chief, Benjamin Wheeler, is a taskmaster that would put Kim Jong Un to shame.
Yeah, my answer to that is I don't have drive. Ben just keeps bothering me. No, I'm obviously exaggerating, but with that said, that's actually the answer, and this is kind of an important. That's only partially sarcastic, and this is actually kind of important to talk about.
Hmm.
People who talk about drive in regards to writing or trying to sell you something, there's no such thing.
Hmm.
You either get the work done or you don't. If you don't get it done, nobody cares why.
Yep.
I can agree with that.
Like it's for me, it's like I want to see this succeed, and I want to make money off of it. Which is why, of course, we're doing these Q&As and stuff like that. We are fulfilling our obligations in a virtuous cycle of cycle virtues.
A virtuous cycle of cycle virtues. I like that.
Anyway, uh, but it's like, for me, since I have a couple different things going on for myself, but basically because I want this to happen, I am going to make it happen, hell or high water. Hannibal crossing the Alps and all that jazz. I don't care how many elephants I lose, you know. Uh, but also, I'm looking for a meme. Uh, but also, there's a certain element of I really like, for myself, what drives me is that I just really don't want to be a failure at this stuff. Like it is, I am tired of all these things I'm seeing, of all the things, that doesn't get completed, that sort of thing. And for myself as well. Like I don't want to, be stuck here. Oh yeah, I could have been a contender, pitch back the shot glass. You know. Um
So for myself, I've been a part of a lot of artistic endeavors with various partners that never got anywhere near as far as this one did. Um, Most of them kind of die on the cutting room floor in brainstorming sessions because the other person's not willing to put in the effort for it. But I think Pinkerton's Ghost is the first one I've been a part of where every one of us, even though Anthony and I joke about how hard a taskmaster Ben is, every one of us puts in just a ton of effort to try and get this done.
oh yeah. And I really appreciate it when you guys like work on that stuff. Because it just makes me, I don't know, feel warm and fuzzy inside in my cold editorial heart. Uh,
Yeah, it's one of those things. So with Pinkerton's Ghost, the thing about it is, like, if you're to ask me, like, do you enjoy working on or whatever, like, the answer would be not really. Like,
oof.
do I enjoy it? Well, I don't actively dislike it, don't get me wrong, but is it something that I look forward to doing? No, it's something that I do because I do Pinkerton's Ghost. I like seeing the finished product when it comes out. I am more or less happy with all of the stories that I've come out with. All of them, I think, came out at, in my opinion, at a level that I am satisfied with other people seeing them. I think that there's a tendency with writers, especially because writing is a craft, right? As
Mm-hmm.
Brian Niemeyer would tell you first and foremost, quite correctly, and he is a working writer, so he would know. Writing is a craft. It's not, it's artistic as well. Don't get me wrong. It is very artistic. It's an art form, but it is also a craft.
Sure.
So this idea that writers are always like, they're not satisfied with their work or whatever, I think that that's an unhealthy idea as well. Like, am I? Do I think I can be improving? Obviously, I hope I am improving as time goes on. For example, in Forest of Fear, which was my most recent story, I think that the action scenes that I wrote in Forest of Fear are a fairly significant improvement from the action scenes of the Appalachian story Grim Tidings.
Sure.
And I also don't think that they're at the level that they could be by any means, and I hope to improve on them again even more. With
Right.
that said, in both of those stories, I wouldn't, I'm happy with how they came out, and I think that they're at a professional level. So there's a balance to be kept there. Yes, you want to always be improving. Yes, you want to recognize that you need to improve, but also you need to be satisfied that you're putting out work that you think is at a professional quality, and if you're not, then maybe you're in the wrong business.
Yep.
Legitimate. I don't even mean that sarcastically. Like, I don't mean that to be condescending. I mean, literally just, it might not be for you. If this is not the sort of thing that you could be happy with work that you know you can do better on.
Sure.
Because you can do better on it. That's what you're always going to be improving, but you still need to be satisfied with the work you put out.
Sure.
Yep.
Because I think I don't remember who said it, but the pursuit of perfection ignores it falls into a trap of ignoring the good enough.
Right.
Right. It's a common saying. The perfect is the enemy of the good is the short
That's what
version
it is.
of the saying, and it's absolutely true. And again, I look back on several of these stories, and obviously, like everybody else, we have our own opinions on what stories we think are better worse than others and which stories you think are good or bad. But with that said, if you were to go, do you think that you are putting out stories of a good quality right now? I would say yes. For all three of us, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it would be rather churlish of me to say, except for Ken.
Well, of
But
course. I am the newbie of all of them.
I feel like it would be very rude if I were just go, everybody except Ben's stories, his are ass, but...
Hey.
But besides that, we're pretty good. But in all seriousness, no, I think we're putting out... So, why do I keep up the drive, or how do I keep up the drive? Well, because I'm supposed to produce a story at this time, so that's what I need to do, and that's it. I'm wondering if it's my audio that's quiet, because
You are a little quiet. I think it's your Discord.
I think it might be because my headset is normally right next to my mouth, and again, I have a new mic.
Hold on.
So
I need to...
that could be it too.
It's an adjustment process.
So I'm just gonna
let me move my mic down as well.
Up Discord.
Move it a little close.
The problem is that like my sound is like not all over the place, but it's like should. And it's like I'm not quite sure how all my sound options work in relation to each other, because it's like I'll up OBS a bit, but it's like, how does upping my volume affect OBS? I don't know.
Look, Ben, all I know is every time I have to deal with audio or anything like that, I just experiment way too much, and it eventually fixes itself.
That's true. It's not like it can break forever.
Exactly.
Cordell says that it helped. That helped a lot. I don't know if I didn't speak when he wrote that, so I don't know if mine is any better or not.
No, I don't know. I just upped the OBS and stuff volume.
Okay, fantastic.
And, like, my volume settings change when I'm not looking at them. It's very frustrating. Well. So, also for just sort of as the last word for maintaining drive, creating something is itself a great feeling. And in this impoverished world of ours, creating something and leaving a mark that you know is quality, not perfection, but quality, is a fantastic thing. I'm more than willing to have 1 or 2 bad or mediocre episodes, just so that there could be 5 or more episodes which are excellent. So here's the next question. How do you keep each individual character's mentality straight in your heads, and is it hard to create characters with philosophies that may conflict with your own, since they would think differently? I am sorry to break this to you, but all of our characters have similar views and values to us.
This is completely true.
Yes.
That was...
Yep, like, even though Jack isn't really me, I'm not much of a wild man, and I don't really do guns or knives or arson. He has similar, like, thought patterns as I do. Like, we don't really get to see him in between missions, but I'm going to fix that in probably a novel I'll write at some point. But basically, he's always turning over ideas and thoughts. He's overthinking things. He's sort of like sallying forth to do something and then retreating back to something comfortable. And he doesn't like to interact with people. I'm sure you've listened to The Wild Hunt by now, but if you haven't, it is on our Subscribestar, available for our subscribers. Hey, Bradford. He's literally sitting in one of his hidey holes, and the elf finds him, and he thinks I might set a trap on the elf, but he'll probably dodge it or just walk off. So, I'm going to chat with him.
Right.
It's not as much about, like, Jack being an artist or anything like that. He isn't. He's a very practical, down-to-earth sort of guy. It's that the patterns that formed Jack are different than my patterns, but the brain waves and how he interprets information is the same.
So, yeah, I'm not gonna lie here. We've had In fact, it's interesting that you brought this up because I just kind of brought this up to Ben and Ken the other day that my character specifically is in a lot of ways similar to me. The other thing too is that, and I'll make no bones about this. So here's a peek behind the curtain. Sean talks like me because that's easier for me to write. I know writers normally don't admit that or say, it's not intentional or I don't do it intentionally. No, it's very intentional with Sean. It is easier for me to write, so Sean talks like me. With that said, Sean has a different backstory than me. In the grand Superversive live stream tradition, I don't talk about my personal life, and I will not. However, there is something to the idea of Sean embracing his Catholicism because he messed up in such deep and meaningful ways that I can definitely relate to on some level. The idea that the way that I think of Sean, I have no clue how this comes across to other people. Maybe nobody even notices it but me. But the way that I think of Sean is that he really would not be a very good person, except for the fact that he ended up falling into being a Catholic. And I tried to make this a little bit more clear in the story for the man who has nothing when you see what his life would have been like if he had never, hit rock bottom and had to be kind of dragged back up by old Tom.
Right.
So, and that is definitely, in a sense, how I think of myself. Like, would I be a good person? No, I absolutely would not be. I would be a terrible person, but I have the church behind me telling me what is and isn't right or wrong. And Sean is the same way. Sean knows, he is very much aware that, his moral judgment is not necessarily accurate, so he leans on the church. In that sense, there is something very distinctly Catholic about the way that Sean handles things as opposed to Protestant, in that he has a structure, an institution behind him that he very heavily leans on in terms of his moral view. And in that sense, it's very similar to me. So how do I, as far as writing characters who have different philosophies than myself, I mean, I guess I'm sure I would be able to do it, but that's not the point of view character that I have here.
And I'm still a baby author here, so I pretty much picked somebody that was very close in thinking process to myself. So it makes it easier for me. But because writing and acting, I've noticed there are a lot of similarities. I don't think it's exactly impossible for me to figure out how to write somebody that thinks differently than I do. I just don't yet.
Mm-hmm.
It'll come.
I'm not worried.
A lot of the development we've gone through as authors has been fairly different. I spent a lot of time sort of studying writing, studying how to put together entertaining stories. Why did Avatar: The Last Airbender work and Korra didn't? What were the ingredients? The ingredients are very similar, but the execution was different. So
Right.
I played it around. I decided what I wanted to see the most, and I went for it. Yeah.
Okay, I'll bite. Why did Avatar: The Last Airbender work and Korra did not?
So half of it is the spirit of the show itself.
Okay.
Avatar was made back before political correctness ran roughshod over the creatives on the West Coast, as
Right.
well as those in power over it. Now, do I believe that, the Weinsteins of the world believe in social justice? No, absolutely not. But what they do believe in is riding waves of popularity, and people who scream loud aren't the same as people who do not scream.
Okay.
Korra, however, was made post then, and there has been a loss of the ability to write good stories with characters who their actions and consequences are interconnected. There's a good example in another show, Steven Universe, where a character and another character, Amethyst and Greg, basically they have the show they watch, but they kind of have a bad relationship because what happens is at the end of the show they eventually start fighting with each other, and then something bad happens. It's kind of different every time.
Steven Universe, that's the space lesbian cartoon show, right?
Yeah. So Steven's like, okay, well, he hears them fighting, so he goes in to look, and he sees Amethyst transform into his dead mother, who transformed herself into him or something like that to birth him, and uh, like she uses it to emotionally abuse Greg. Like it is a messed up scene. It haunts me because it is an absolute horrible scene. Like, can you imagine it? Someone transforms into your dead mother to only to torment your father, who is your one authority figure you truly respect and is also another man.
Oh, that's pretty awful.
I know, right? So she's like, "Yeah, I cleaned up the garage, so we're cool now, right?" And it's like, no, the consequences should be, "Hey, that was messed up." Like she's not only doing it to Greg and her, and to be fair, like Greg puts up with a lot of crap that would get him killed or some other stuff, but also it's just a messed up statement. But she also interfered with the son. Like she can't be easily forgiven of that. There's certain things that you can get away with easily forgiving and certain things that you can't. And it's not one of the things. The consequence did not match the action. Korra has the same way. There are many times when consequences do not match the actions. The big ones is sort of like Korra herself. Sure, the ER or whatever joke is that she's a Mary Sue. I now say it like Mare Sue, but no, it's a Mary Sue. She's a Mary Sue. She doesn't really struggle, and even when she does struggle, it's past the points when she should have struggled. Aang had to earn all of his power advancements. Korra starts out with 3 out of 4, and she struggles with the 4th one, but it doesn't feel like a struggle because she still earns it her own way, rather than through the way that everyone else does. And so there's a lot of like connection there. Zuko's backstory with Zula and the Avatar, how his character develops and grows. What the stakes are. It's all different. Even though they did a more serial season format, it's even though the villains and stuff like that were very interesting, in some cases, especially the first one and the third one, they still never hit what they needed to hit with the consequences, the character arcs, and the development of what they were writing. And so, I figured that out. Let's see here. We did get a question.
Ooh.
What made you guys get into horror? I suppose I'll answer that one. Basically,
yeah. Especially since Anthony and my answers would be because Ben asked us to. Yes,
Correct.
This is definitely your question.
Right.
I have the only horror that I have seen or I have experienced before this point before Pinkerton's Ghosts really was Edgar Allan Poe. That was it. I didn't watch, was not a fan of horror, with the exception of Poe.
Yeah, I did horror because it is usually a cheap investment for a high return. And also, I did not want to write a superhero story. I did not want to write a mystery because I am not actually that good at mysteries. I'm good at riddles and short form, but like when I write mysteries, it always feels like I've made it too obvious to myself. And I can't really do subtle as well as I should like.
With that said, get ready, because in the Pinkerton's Ghost universe, I will be writing a mystery at some point, long form.
And I am perfectly...
It will involve what... I've talked with Ben about this for a while. I'm hoping that I'm going to be writing it during the summer.
Nice.
And it will involve blood money for people who follow the series. And it's going to follow a new detective who is going to be introduced next story, named Nick, who is not a Pinkerton, but a private detective in the city of Shipton. And he is going to be taking on blood money.
Fantastic.
Be awesome. Can't wait to edit it. Well, the audio.
I have no idea how the audio is going to come out for this. So,
Dude,
it'll be
so your new microphone, guys. Anthony bought a new microphone. It's fantastic. His voice sounds so much better.
it really does, because my voice, and I could say this without being arrogant about it, because my voice just sounded horrendous on the other mic. So
Oh, it really
saying
did.
it sounds so much better means I've been brought up to slightly above average.
Exactly.
So Cordell Mitchell, King Cordell Mitchell, gives us a good. I think his tier is 21st Century Schizoid Night or something. The $20 subscription. Do you guys see a renaissance in future for science fiction because people are getting fed up with converged nihilistic garbage that's being pushed out by controlling elements of the community? Bradford Walker gives us a reply, but I do, but they won't go out of their way to find it. It's on us to bring it to them, which I agree with,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, I would say I would have said something very similar, but it would have been along the lines of yes and no. Yes, I think that more of that fiction will be created. No, I don't think we're going to see any sort of pop culture renaissance, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
because the pop cult is controlled by the enemy. Rather, I think that we will see new works being made that are not converged and that are good, and in that it is, in fact, what we are seeing. But it's not going to permeate the cultural consciousness. We'll have to get it out to them. So,
Yep.
the good news in the world of publishing in the modern day, believe it or not, vastly outweighs the bad, and for one very simple reason. In ye olden days, when TradPub was king and the big four publishers, previously Big Five, ruled all, then you would have been a fool to get into writing as a career, because there was really only one way to make a career out of writing, or two if you want to be really lucky. Number one of them was get extremely lucky and go viral, which is more or less what happened with J.K. Rowling, from my understanding of her. She just got really, really lucky. Like, she didn't really do anything. She
Right.
just happened to hit on the right people at the right time during the right zeitgeist and all of that stuff. The second way is to, pay your dues with the big four publishing houses for decades until finally they use you as a workhorse. And either way, you cannot count. If you are working with a big four publishing house in the olden days, getting a career as a writer was basically a lottery ticket. It was not reliable. It was not a good way to make money, and the odds of you succeeding were unbelievably low. That is no longer the case. There has been a change in the field. The trad club field no longer controls things. The fact of the matter is that if you treat writing like a business, where you put out work consistently, you intentionally try and improve your craft, you learn marketing and market to the right people, anybody can be an author. Now, anybody can be an author in the sense that anybody can be a plumber, in that not that you can just do it immediately, but that as long as you learn how to do it, you will make money if you try to become an author. That is the difference in the modern publishing field. So if somebody were to tell you, I want to grow up and be an author, no longer would you say, Johnny, great, go and find some work in that author factory down the road. They're looking for people with author degrees. If you've ever seen the Philosophy Factory memes.
No.
It's a meme where she goes, Dad, I want to get a degree in philosophy. And he goes, oh, great, because the Philosophy Factory down the road is hiring. Same thing with same idea with authors. Like, Dad, I want to be an author. That's great, because the Author Factory down the road is hiring. No longer is that a good answer. Now, if somebody were to say you want to be an author, you could give them concrete advice with the confidence that as long as they produced, they would be able to make a living out of it.
Sure.
So this connects to what Cordell is saying, in that this sci-fi that he's talking about, this non-converged, non-nihilistic sci-fi, will exist. It will be made. It is being made right now by quite a few people, in fact, us included. The problem is that the pop cult is never going to put it into the mainstream.
Sure.
Why has Larry Correa's Monster Hunter series not gotten a Netflix show yet? Because he's Larry Correa. Obviously, because he's published by Bain. That's why. Why has Nick Cole not gotten a series yet? Well, because he's Nick Cole. Right-wing, hardcore Catholic Nick Cole. So, obviously, he's not going to get a series. But the
I
work
can't
is
read him
out
ever again.
there. Mm-hmm. It is out there. It does exist. It's up to us, though, as Bradford says, to bring it to people. And if we do that, we'll find a market.
Yep.
I'm good for that.
There's also there's hope in more trad ways of doing things. Not that it's great hope, not that it really compares to the best of what we can do. The Nick Coles, the Brian Niemeyers, really I should be publishing so much more. But it's like, compared to David Halquist. David Halquist Guardian series is amazing. His A Warrior integration series is amazing. These things that he even broke into the top 50 selling on Amazon for Warrior integration because of a push, during a decent time too, not like at 3 a.m. or whatever. So it's like these things are happening. A bit of hope in a more trad way is that I am watching a series called Final Space, which is actually really good for its kind. Like the hero is a hero. He's kind of an idiot. There's everyone's a different race and all that jazz. But it's not obnoxious. It's like they had, okay, yeah, we'll have black female lead. She's smart. And then they're like, okay, now she's doing awesome things and she doesn't care. And then it's like, the romance is a little easy and this is a little dumb. But honestly, it works out and the jokes land and I don't feel insulted. I don't think they've made a single anti-religious joke that I remember.
That's rare.
I know, that's very rare. So it's not like everyone in the trad stuff is, in the trad sphere is cucked and whatever. It's that most of it is, and the stuff that people talk about certainly is. And like the Harvey Bird Girl thing, I don't get why people are surprised by Adult Swim cucking out or anything like that. They were always on that side. They made jokes about it all the time. Robot Chicken always made jokes about it. The
fact that they run Rick and Morty should be evidence enough of that. And I laugh at Rick and Morty. I think it's well made, but it is made by an enemy.
Right. I laughed at like one episode of it.
I laugh at a little bit more.
No, I mean, look.
So
I laugh at Rick and Morty. I think Rick and Morty's pretty funny.
I'm too special to laugh at Rick and Morty.
Oh, big man.
Yes.
You just don't have the IQ. You just don't have a high enough IQ. Ken.
Oh yes, that is
you need
what
a
it
high
is.
IQ to appreciate Rick and Morty, as everybody knows.
This is true. You are right.
You need to be just rolling on the floor, screaming about pickles. All right. So, Bradford Walker says for now the only way for popular culture is to go through a foreign intermediary. Japan. Down the road will simply build out alternatives to the enemy's networks.
Sadly, I am more pessimistic about that. I think that the collapse will happen first.
Yeah. So, and I'm gonna go over some things with it that are developing. Japan is starting to censor itself to sell, and a lot of it's Funimation, and a lot of it's but they are starting to censor. Foreign stuff is not always as based as it once was.
It's Funimation and Crunchyroll, that's the reason why, and the fact that they have a massive overseas audience. With that said, believe it or not, Demon Slayer may actually help a lot with this, and the reason is that Demon Slayer is very Japanese, and it's a mega hit in Japan.
Yep. I don't really right now fortunately there's pushback in Japan more than there is in America, but it's not what it could be, and we kind of do need to hope for the better.
Much
I
more
guess
converged.
much
Right.
more converged.
Japan has its own issues.
Yep.
Yeah, Japan has its own issues. They very much have their own issues, and they should be called out for them. Their main issues are that they tend heavily towards gamma fantasies and towards pedophilia,
Yep.
which is disgusting, and we should unequivocally condemn it every time we see it and not support such media. But with that said, as a whole, compared between the two, Japanese media tends to be much less converged than Western media.
Right. Agreed.
Yep. Well, let's go to the next question. Do you guys have a favorite monster that you're hoping to bring into Pinkertons or already have brought in, and what makes it your favorite? I've been starting these. Ken, why don't you start with us?
Oh goodness. I think, my personal, I enjoy demons as the most interesting. I think, because as a Christian, I tend to think that they're, of most of these, the only realistic monster, or I guess you could say the one that we've got the most information on. So I find it the most interesting to write about them.
Mm. Do you have a specific goal you want to go for it, or some sort of how do I want to say it?
Mm.
Like, what are you looking into?
What am I looking into? Well, with all of my stories, I really enjoy playing around with various ideas. For instance, the Verum Vicio, I enjoyed playing around with different magical mechanics that, are kind of fun for me. Well, when it comes to demons, I like to play around with different, I don't want to say perceptions, but when it comes to fiction with demons, the only ones I can really think of are like Frank Peretti and kind of hard stop there. And I guess Jim Butcher also did demons as well with his Harry Dresden. But of course, Frank Peretti, his books were they erred on the side of fanciful without getting too deep into any actual biblical lore. And so I kind of want to ride that line a little bit better than he did.
I dig it.
Yeah. For instance, that's why in Succubus I named her Lilith. Well, Lilith isn't actually the name of a demon. It's, in Jewish lore, I guess you'd call it, the name of Adam's first wife. The idea being that the first attempt at Eve didn't want to yield to man as her husband and Lord, and so she went off to do her own thing. And so from her sprang all kinds of demons and succubi and all other sorts of things. And so I thought that was an interesting model to play with for an established lore already set up. Succubuses, Lilith, already kind of exist. I just wanted to take it a step further and make her an actual demon.
I dig it. And
Yes.
we'll have demons ourselves and other things like that. I plan on having to have a joke where it's like hell as bureaucracy. And they show up like a lawyer, and it's like,
I mean, that's basically the screw tape letters.
Exactly. Sir,
Cordell
please.
Mitchell says. Cordell says that the episode about the pre-Diluvian monsters have been his favorite so far, and that Nephilim are a really interesting concept to me. I agree, Cordell. I really like Nephilim, and I think they kind of go with my idea of demons because they're demon-human hybrids. My own understanding of the Fae is that Fae might as well be Nephilim, IRL. I'm sure our myths of who the Fae actually are probably came from that antediluvian hybrid. That's just my opinion.
And I allow multiple opinions and stuff like that because it creates interest, and it sort of creates a bit of variation in there, so we have more wriggle room for good stories.
Right. Which I really appreciate that about the stuff you've allowed us to play with.
I know that with some places like Magnus Archives, the setup is just annoying and frustrating because the lore, once you get past the normal lore, like the rest of the lore just gets so complex, and there's like 13 different gods, and they're each doing their own thing, except they might not be doing their own, so on and so forth. And you just kind of have to roll with it. And I'm trying to avoid that.
Sure.
You know, even though I will never allow a story where Jim explicitly says fairies are Nephilim, I will allow Jim to be like, I think fairies are Nephilim. Whenever I write fairies, they're going to be explicitly like quasi-automatons who take care of nature but have also rebelled against God. And I
Interesting. I'm writing them under more or less how the way that I was writing the fairies was more or less how John C. Wright was using them in his Moth and Cobweb series.
And I borrow quite a bit from that. How about you, Anthony? What do you want to bring in?
To answer that question, yeah, I don't really have particular. So I will tell you this though. When I started the series, one of the things that I wanted to do was show off New Jersey a little bit.
Sure.
Because I've always been, banging the drum that New Jersey is actually, and I mean this not in the, racial or ethnic sense, but in a more broad sense, a very diverse state. And I mean that in the sense that New Jersey, for not being a very large state at all, in fact, it's quite tiny. You could drive across the state in 3 hours about. If you take the major highways, more or less, maybe 3.5 hours, and we have large areas of forests, large areas of farmland, mountains, cities, shores, all sorts of different areas all across what is a tiny. Also have a very rich history. We were known as the Crossroads of the Revolution. Famously, Morristown likes to brag that they were the coldest revolution that the Continental Army faced. Valley Forge was more famous because Marquis de Lafayette came in and whipped the army into shape, but Morristown was technically colder, which is true. I've been to Morristown before. So that was one of the things this season I wanted to do. An episode that took place on the shore, an episode that took place in the mountains, an episode that took place on farms, an episode that took place in the Pine Barrens, and the last one that I wanted to do was an episode that had something to do with the New Jersey's revolutionary history. So, as far as what I got to do this season, I got to do everything but the revolutionary history. The episode about New Jersey's revolutionary history I was planning on doing, but when I was planning it out, I realized it would make more sense as a two-parter, and then Ben suggested that I use it for the season 2 opener. So expect that a story about New Jersey's Revolutionary War era roots, colonial era roots, coming for the season 2 opener, and it will involve time travel and the Battle of Princeton. It should be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Excited about that one. Now, Anthony, for the longest time before Florida Man really took off, New Jersey was the United States joke state. Why do you think that is, and are you trying to repair that image?
So, I think that it richly deserves its reputation as the United States joke state, and I think I think that's a tragedy because it doesn't have to be. So, the reason is that our politicians are absolute garbage. This is entirely nonpartisan too. We are what is nowadays happily become more common vocabulary, a uniparty state. We had Chris Christie in. I will freely admit to when I was younger, and I would have been pretty young at the time, but I was like excited about Christie. My family was excited about Christie. I think I even got a picture with him when he was campaigning in the area.
Wow.
Never have I been more disappointed by a politician. Christie was a rude wake-up call. New Jersey, being on the border of New York, is one of the most, along with New York and New York City specifically, is one of the most corrupt states in the country.
Sure.
All of our large cities, and we have quite a few of them, unfortunately, are absolute trash. Some of them are improving, like Newark, but they're improving into slightly less bad trash. They're still trash. And then there are cities like Trenton that aren't improving at all. The city of Shipton, that appears several times in the story, is loosely, I emphasize loosely, based on the city of Camden. The reason it was based on the city of Camden is that Camden went several decades, I believe, as the murder capital of the country, at the very least several years. I might be exaggerating the timeline slightly, but it was the murder capital of the country for a while. And it fascinated me one day when New Jersey decided to like cut 70% of Camden's police force. The theory at the time, when I shared articles with you guys, I think, but the theory at the time when they did it was that if you cut down the police force and then like change the way that they prosecute crimes, maybe it was over policing that was causing the issues. And now they've started sharing statistics that it worked, and Camden's crime rate has gone down, and Camden's murder rate has gone down. So, to emphasize here, I have not looked deeply into this. So, for all I know, maybe they're right. Maybe it did work. But doesn't that sound implausible to you? Doesn't it seem more likely that they just stopped counting certain crimes,
Well, yeah,
and then
exactly
magically the crime rate went down? Now, is
know.
that what happened? I don't know. Maybe maybe it's true. Maybe the crime rate really did go down. Maybe Camden is a wonderful place today. Color me skeptical.
Now, Anthony, you mentioned something that I still haven't picked up until immediately right now. So Shipton doesn't actually exist?
No. So the real life Camden is not a shore town. For one thing, it's not a shore town. However, it's like when I say it's based loosely on Camden, that's what it's based on. And the backstory of Shipton is the fact that they cut down the police force, and kind of abandon the city to the wolves. Which is what I perceive as having happened with Camden. Whether or not it happened or not, it makes for a good fictional backstory. So anybody looking for Shipton for real history lessons about the real Camden, New Jersey, don't. I have not looked that deeply into it, and I'm not particularly interested in looking that deeply into it, because whether it's right or wrong, it's certainly not wrong in the case of the fictional city of Shipton.
There you go.
That is what happened.
I'm 100% good with that.
So, to answer the question, it's our politicians that make our state as horrible as it is.
Fair enough. As a Californian, I can agree with that. Or can relate to that.
As far as what the state has to offer, I think that we actually have quite a bit to offer people, but it's a shame that most people will never know that.
We won't.
What was that?
No, we won't. I'm just giving you grief. I dig it. Yeah, so for me, monsters, I like Medusa, I like werewolves, Nephilim, I like giants, I like monster girls. That's the big one.
And you introduced perhaps the most monstrous monster girl of all in Nighthawk.
I did. Which one? The Lamia or the slime girl? Slimy Hagar.
I was thinking slime girl.
Oh, yes.
Slimy Hagar.
Forever you have changed my future.
I know, right?
I don't know if I should thank you or hate you.
She's not, like, slimes aren't even in my list of monster girls, so it's like, eh.
Understand.
So, most of that for that for me is just kind of like enjoyment more than anything else. Like Slimy Hagar will not really show up again unless I decide that I want the restaurant just off kilter from the center of the universe to show up inside.
Out of curiosity, did you have Restaurant at the End of the Universe in mind when you wrote Nighthawk Rider?
Not like you. So when I reference something, it's not that I've ever read it. I just know it exists.
Right.
Because Restaurants at the End of the Universe have been a thing for quite some time.
Sure.
Because the book is hilarious. One
yeah.
of the funniest books I've ever read. The first 3 books in Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Trilogy are absolutely hysterical. Book 4 exists, and Book 5 is actually almost as funny. Everybody hates it because of the ending, but I've always been of the opinion of how exactly did you expect it to end?
To be perfectly honest, I never got through the ending. When I read through the series, I was like 12.
I'm just gonna spoil it for you, and it's been out for how many years now? So
30, 40. Go for it.
Yeah, 40 years or something. So it ends with all of the characters except for Zaphod, who just happens not to be there, and he mostly wasn't in the book, but end up on Earth, and Arthur has a vision of something that's going to happen to him, and he realizes that in the future, and he realizes that he can't die until this vision comes to pass.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the main characters end up on Earth in the same location when the vision occurs.
Okay.
And the Earth is about to be destroyed. And Arthur realizes, oh, wait, wow, the vision happened. That means that the Earth really can be destroyed. And then they cut to a group of aliens destroying not just the Earth, but every version of Earth in every possible universe all at once. And everybody dies. The end.
It does kind of fit.
And everybody was really upset about this book, which is called Mostly Harmless. I
Right.
actually thought it was really funny, and I enjoyed
Sure.
it greatly. And
Sure.
people were really upset at the ending. And on one hand, I do understand why. Like, I get why people who are fans of the series would be upset. And on the other hand, I was like, well, what exactly did you expect would happen
Right.
with these characters in this universe?
Exactly.
It was always a pretty hopeless place.
Right. That is very
And
true.
it ends with a bunch of aliens who he's established in the book, like that they watch Earth on television,
Mhm.
and that's all they do, and they don't know why they do it or what they do it for, but they say that they're watching it, and then and then it just ends with they watch the Earths blink out, and then they shrug, and then they change the channel, and that's how the series ends. That's it. And
Almost
I actually think that's really funny.
That is so Douglas Adams.
It is. He apparently said, though, that he did intend to create a sequel. I think he said, I wrote that when I was in a very dark place. And when they asked
No.
him how he would do it with everybody dead, he said, are you kidding? That makes it easier. At least everybody's in the same place at this point. Which is funny.
That's true.
And then Owen Colfer, who I actually think is a really good writer, wrote an absolutely awful sequel called And Then Another Thing that I tried to read and couldn't. It was an abomination, just a terrible book. It's not even really Owen Colfer's fault because Douglas Adams is such a unique voice that nobody can replicate it.
Sure.
And he was trying to replicate it and it did not go well at all. Man.
So, that pretty much answers that question. Let's see here. Did you guys ever think you would be voice actors of any kind? Do you feel like you've improved as time has passed on voice acting?
Take it away, Ken.
Yeah, go for it, Ken.
I mean, I'm probably the only one that actually thought he not only would become a voice actor, but actively pursued it. That's my career aspiration, really, is to be more than just an actor, but a voice actor.
Oh.
The highest form of acting.
Highest form, lowest paying.
Oh no.
No, I'm here in Hollywood, and I'm trying to make a thing of it, Cordell, and so it's been interesting at times. In fact, the voiceover. Oh, sure. Well, just because voiceover acting in Los Angeles is one of the more hard fields to get into, because every agent and every casting director has their own guy that they always go to for everything. And so I was ecstatic when Ben said, "Hey, Ken, you want to do a radio show? Well, great. I've got a face for radio." So this was the kind of thing I've been looking for quite a few years to boost my career.
Absolutely. And I think the quality speaks to itself. Like, your audio editing has really been the thing that sets us apart from, just sort of like the other stuff that also has like editing, but like the stories aren't as good. Like, if I was stuck with only what I had, it would be a much lower and quality and slower produced thing.
Sure.
Thing.
Thing.
For myself, I know that I did read books for quite some time. I read through like the first third or so of Titus Grown by Mervyn Peake. Yes, the Gormenghast book. Yes, I did voices. I like, what?
What? I don't know what this is.
It's a series
You don't know Gormenghast?
No, never heard of this.
It's a series of tragicomic gothic novels that are okay-ish.
I know that John C. Wright thinks that they're absolutely awful.
Huh.
So the first book's good. The second book's good for the first half. And the third book is supposedly trash.
Huh.
Supposedly. I do not know enough about it to say either way, because
Sure.
I never get past the middle section of the second book, which is a 200-page farcical dinner party between the okay. It's a farcical dinner party. How about that? And it goes for 200 pages, and it's like 60 college professors to one woman, and
Oh,
she's
that
not
poor
even
woman.
pretty.
Oh,
And the woman is
Yeah.
absolutely milking it for everything.
Amazing.
Like, it's one of those things where I understand why you thought this would be funny. It is
sure.
not funny. That's it. That's my Gorman gas rant. However, the first book is actually excellent. The series that was made, which is basically just the first book or so,
Mhm.
is pretty good too.
Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I was always doing a little bit of voice acting, that sort of thing. What is happening to my dudes? But
So
yeah.
I'll answer then. Answer the question. I never really thought of this as as voice acting, just more like doing an audiobook. Uh, so when Ben asked me to do Pinkerton's Ghost, my response, he told me that he was actually having an issue getting authors to grasp that part of the job was that they would need to read it out. But my immediate thought when he told me about the concept was, oh, like the Welcome to Night Vale series. That's cool. And I don't watch Night Vale. I just heard of it, and I like the idea behind Night Vale. I don't watch it because I heard it went woke, and I have no interest supporting people who hate me. So the so when Ben asked me about it, I was all in on the beginning. I have done acting before in high school and in community theater. The most highbrow thing I was in was I was the gravedigger in Hamlet. The gravedigger
Ooh,
gets
very
one
nice.
scene. The
So yeah,
gravedigger gets
you
one
got to
scene,
be a
but it's
part
pretty
of the
funny.
alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio.
Yep. I was in that scene. I did not deliver the
Right.
line, of course. That's a
Of course.
Hamlet line, but
Right.
uh, that's the most highbrow thing I've ever been in. I've also been in a few other shows. 42nd Street, which was fun. I got to do a terrible Texas accent, and I did some shows in high school that were just part of high school. I would probably be acting more if Corona-chan hadn't shut everything down. I probably would be doing more auditioning and things like that. So I,
Tend to ruin
yeah,
everything,
I
don't
had
you?
no issue. I'll put it to you this way, yeah. I had no issue when Ben asked me about it. I was very cheerful. Okay, sounds good. Yeah.
Right. Like,
It wasn't real it wasn't anything that set off any alarm bells. It was just kind of like, sure, that's
Any alarm bells?
it's weird because, like, I have explained it to several authors. It's like, okay, so then
well,
you read it
because the
out.
way Ben described it was that yeah.
Oh well, it's
Yeah,
all right now.
when Ben described it to me, he said like yeah, some authors were either very confused by the concept or very alarmed by it. Like, they didn't want to read out their stories, or they just didn't grasp that they would have to be the ones to do it. They're like, you mean you don't have a reader? Because normally you get an audiobook, you get somebody to do the audiobook.
Right, and
uh,
it's like, no, you are the reader. It's supposed to be extra special. Uh,
and and my reaction was always just kind of like, all right, sounds good. I like that idea.
okay.
It's cool. I
It's
like
really
Night
funny for
Vale,
me coming from my perspective to deal
which
with
I
the
don't, but I
anti.
like the idea of Night Vale.
Yeah, right.
yeah. Minnow says big cities announcing they aren't going to prosecute petty small crime. Magically, crime rate drops. Absolutely. Would
Tale as old as time.
Like, yeah, they do. Like, if you ever talk to someone who works at Walgreens, people do just come in, load up a backpack, and leave. uh, would the curse God put on Cain make for a good basis for the story? So, let's see. And Rick Farrell replies directly. Um, that would be interesting. Cain got a mark, then went east of Eden. Uh, Mark was a good luck sign, same sign that Charles Manson put on his forehead. Used as a symbol of good fortune in India and other Asian countries like the Manji. I don't know. He didn't say that. That's my reaction to what he said.
Hmm. Hmm.
And Supernatural did a season on the Mark of Cain, so yeah, it's a good story idea. So
Did they?
it is a decent story idea, and it's one I will approve, but it has to be done a certain way. Part of
Right.
the thing with Cain is that he didn't move because of the shame of killing Abel. He moved because God cursed him.
Right.
Like, the thing is that God took away what made Cain special. Cain was the first true farmer.
Right.
You know, he grew crops. He had his lettuce and his whatever else. Who cares?
Yeah, kale. He's a kale farmer.
Kale. All right. He had the soybeans.
Oof.
He grew soy. So we have, and then he went and married his sister and all that jazz, and had his own city. And he founded the first city, or at least was the father of.
And not even quasi. He 100% made the first city.
Yeah, you're right. He did. So it's wait, I'm thinking of metal. Tubal came first metal.
Oh yeah, Tubal came in first metal. Yeah.
The thing with a mark like that is that taking away a character's special behavior because of something or by Deus Ex Machina. Not that God is Deus Ex Machina. He's actually way more predictable than Deus Ex Machina sometimes. Not that I'm saying God's predictable. I'm dancing that fine line. That I'm saying that God is is competent in his narratives. How about that?
Right.
I think
There
we
you
can
go.
all agree with that, no matter what denomination. Is that I would have to be very careful as to what the offense was and how it affects something. When it's
Right.
you and like 17 other dudes and dudettes, it's a different implication than if someone had got the mark of Cain and then lived in New York City as a soy swilling journalist. What's Cain's next op-ed? The oppression of Seth and his children over his own kids. Or something stupid like that. Why demons are our friends. I gotta get better at siege battles. So it's really it's complicated. I don't know what Supernatural did because I never really watched Supernatural. I watched
Oh, you
like the
missed out.
first season or something like that, second season. But like I don't really watch TV. I'm behind on several shows. Like it's probably not a episode I would do. What are your opinions, guys?
Well, I remember several authors have said that the Mark of Cain was a vampire thing. And I know several authors have said that being a ginger was a Mark of Cain thing. Personally, I lean towards the ginger thing because it just makes sense. And because it just furthers my own ego.
Persecution complex.
Yeah, that as well, yes.
I'm sure you can make a good idea out of it. That's all I really have to say. But
Yeah.
yeah,
This might not be.
I mean,
yeah.
nothing that I would do until I would have to think of something really clever if I was going to do something with it.
Sure.
But there's certainly nothing wrong with the idea. I could even imagine introducing like an immortal Cain into the story or something.
Ooh, that'd be neat.
Yeah.
Immortality
cool
being part of his
idea.
curse.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
That could be
boy,
kind
now
of
I
a
kinda wanna
cool
play with that
idea.
now.
Reminds me of the Wandering Jew in A Canticle for Leibowitz.
I never read that.
You should. It's a fantastic novel.
Huh.
Very few. I'll put it to you this way: it is a science fiction novel where one of the dramatic climaxes of the story is when a priest takes down a light bulb and replaces it with a crucifix, and you are supposed to agree with this character. So I'll remember reading that scene, just being blown away by the fact that somebody had the balls to put in their science fiction novel.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right.
And it also has one of the most brutal and tear-jerking, moving, and again, final section. So it's a three-part book. It's about the collapse of civilization, and how it's rebuilt by a group of Catholic monks called the Church of Saint Leibowitz.
Okay.
And the Order of Saint Leibowitz, and this order of monks, slowly rebuilt. They follow three different eras of history. The first is when one of them sees a vision of Saint Leibowitz in the desert, and they use that miracle to like verify his sainthood. The second is like a Da Vinci type comes and visits the monastery, and he's humiliated when one of the monks has already figured out electricity before him.
Okay.
Essentially, and it's about like their conflict. And the third story takes place in the far future after society has been rebuilt, but nuclear war is looming, and in fact, it's already hit, and it seems as if the destruction of society will be imminent, and they need to evacuate the church into the stars. And that third section, oh man, it's absolutely brutal. So,
Really?
a hospital sets up on the grounds of the Abbey of St. Leibowitz. And one of the rules of the Abbey, and this is why I have so much respect for Walter M. Miller, who wrote the book. He said, you can set up here, but no euthanization. If you euthanize, you're out. That's it, no question. Because people were apparently like getting radiation poisoning all over, and they were doing that as a matter of course.
Oh, okay.
So the hospital agrees, but they kick out the doctors because one of them euthanizes a child.
Oh.
And he says, the child is dying. There is no hope here. I'm not I'm not going to just let him suffer like that. And he says, get out of my abbey. You're not allowed here. So later he finds a mother, the head of the abbot, the head abbot, is driving, and he finds a mother, and she's going to get her small child who is dying of radiation poisoning. Which, to be clear here, think of the situation he has set up. It's a small child who is dying and is in acute pain. Right. So this is like, the wet dream, right? Like, well, why wouldn't you euthanize him then type thing,
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And the abbot is trying to talk the mother out of it. And the mother says, I'm going getting euthanized, until the abbot says, in the name of God, I am ordering you, because you are a Catholic and I am a priest, not to get this child euthanized. And he says that it probably would have worked, except he's then pulled over by a cop. And this breaks the spell. It breaks the spell because now he's being told by a secular authority to do something, and he has to listen.
Oh.
And the doctor who had euthanized somebody on the grounds of the abbey shows up there, and the abbot punches him. And but the doctor chooses not to press charges, and it ends with a bomb drops after the abbot has confessed to punching the guy and has received a very severe talking to by his confessor. A bomb drops and it collapses the monastery, and he realizes that the Eucharist is out in adoration, and he runs to protect the Eucharist and is crushed while grabbing the Eucharist, and he realizes that the pain that he's experiencing at this moment is probably equivalent to the pain of the child that he had told the mother not to euthanize.
Oh, that's dark.
It is.
I like that.
Walter M. Miller was a Catholic, which you could probably tell. Yeah. It's utterly brutal, devastating, beautiful book. Highly, highly recommended. So that's a tangent that I'm happy to go on. It's the best science fiction novel ever written, and it needs to be more famous.
Kind of want to read that now.
That's good stuff.
You very much should. Yes. You should. We got more comments.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Ben, take it away.
So, are you guys looking forward to any piece of media coming out soon, like a show, game, book, etc.? I need to play Doom Eternal's Ancient Gods Part 2. Antlers, which is a horror film about Wendigo. Willy's Wonderland was fun, but it wasn't really worth the money I spent on it. I'm looking forward to season 2 of Galaxy's Edge. That's sort of like that was a brutal battle. That's sort of like
Season 1 was
everything.
awesome.
There's so much good anime coming out. It's crazy.
Oh yeah.
Even this past season is just the beginning of it, and it was already. But just today, the new episode of My Hero Academia came out, and even though I'm skeptical about how good season 5 is going to be, if they do justice to the My Villain Academia arc, it's going to be something special. So
Right.
that should be so that's exciting. And there's just tons and tons of shows and of great anime that's coming. So I'm looking forward to that. An adaptation of Pluto is coming eventually. I'm looking forward to the new show.
Wait, what adaptation of Pluto? What do you mean by that? Like the planet?
It's a manga that Ben is a big fan of.
I'm an absolutely big fan of it. So it's like Mega Man and stuff like that, except somebody is serial killing robots. And there's all kinds of drama and ideas,
and they are adapting that to an anime, so that should be fun.
I mean, 100% sounds like it lends itself to anime quality.
Shaman King is getting a remake, and I never watched the original, but I do like the concept of it. And I heard that the original never adapted the proper ending, and I heard that the proper ending is pretty good. So maybe getting a good adaptation would be nice. Let's see. And the composer is the guy who composes for Haikyuu and My Hero Academia, both of which have super hype soundtracks.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So that's
if anything else, that's the soundtrack is the best part of those two series.
Mm-hmm. Especially Haikyuu, which I don't think is as good as My Hero Academia, but the
absolutely
fire.
Absolutely.
Let's see, just tons and tons of stuff. So yes, there's a lot of good anime to look forward to, at least.
Right.
Books wise, Stephen Lawhead said he was working on something Arthur related for people who read his Pendragon cycle. I am really hoping that he does a story about what happened between what happened to Len Leog in between Grail and Arthur. A sentence that means nothing to anybody who hasn't read the series, but people who have read the series will understand.
I read it 15 years ago, so I do not remember it super well.
You might not have. If it was 15 years ago, I don't even know if Grail was out yet, because he published that a little bit later.
I think that one was. I think he published it right when I stopped reading his stuff.
Well, there you go. I'm a big Lawhead fan. I read his Dragon King trilogy, which I quite enjoyed.
Right.
His King Raven trilogy is probably my favorite of his, actually, though I love his Pendragon cycle. So if I'll explain then. So at the end of Grail, Lancelot, his version of Lancelot, who he calls Lenleog, in the story because he uses those Welsh names. His version of Lancelot. Hold on 1 second, please. I'm muting for a moment.
Okay, while you're working with that, I'm looking forward to the continuation of a series called The Land by a guy named Aileron Kong. Basically, okay, so Sword Art Online, right, Ben?
Yeah.
Okay, did you ever watch or you just know of it?
I know of it.
Okay, so you know the concept, though. A guy goes to a foreign world that's basically a video game.
Yes.
Okay, so isekai, huge thing in anime. It's almost it's a painful meme. It's usually terrible, but Aileron Kong has an American sense of humor and has played so many video games. It seems like he's actually written a video game in a book format. It's incredible. He has found a way to make it so that things like levels and experience and stuff like that aren't painfully awful concepts. And this upcoming book is going to be book 9 of a progressively long and longer series. Which you could call it power fantasy, but the main hero goes through so much pain and awful torment that I don't really think there's a lot of gamma wish fulfillment in this.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, like it does include a rebirth mechanic, but he goes through all the horror. It's basically ReZero, where the main character suffers all the agony of death. At one point, he gets castrated, and he dies that way.
Oh.
It's incredibly graphic, but incredibly satisfying how he comes back and handles the person who killed him the first time. I won't go into more
That's
details than that
interesting.
because it's actually a pretty big spoiler.
Rebirth mechanics aren't an inherently bad idea. I mean,
Sure.
they're handled badly quite often, like
Usually
redo of
yes.
healer, like redo of healer type garbage.
Yeah.
Never watched it. Don't want to.
No, of course not. But
Everything I've heard is trash.
I've watched reviews of it, and the reviews are hilarious. So, uh, but I'm talking like ReZero for all of its flaws. The way that it handles the rebirth mechanic, I think it does fine with that.
Sure.
For the most part, same thing with like Steins Gate does a pretty good job with it. It's reset time travel-ish mechanic, so
Yeah.
it can be done well. It's just difficult to do.
I got no problem with it as long as the guy that's rebirthing suffers for it. As long as he suffers for it, I'm okay with whatever happens.
Exactly.
But if they make it so that death really doesn't matter, I'm not interested.
So Foo Bear says Pinkerton's Ghost is very similar to later Supernatural seasons when they introduced the Men of Letters concept.
I watched it up to that point. Basically
Oh,
up to that particular arc.
The later Supernatural seasons past season 5 are famously terrible.
Yeah, I kind of hated it. I stopped watching after season 7, and I only got that far because I don't even know. Obviously, I wasn't interested in the two main characters since they're dudes, and I don't swing that way. But I don't know. Seems like most of the fans are ladies or men of similar.
Yeah, apparently. Did you hear about the controversy, quote unquote, for the finale?
Oh,
it
where
was
God's
hilarious.
gay? Was that the one? Where
so
God's
not
gay?
that. No, although that sounds equally funny. The controversy was that Michael, I think, or whoever, somebody who dies says he's gay for I think Dean.
Ian?
Or
There's
something.
no Ian character. Oh,
Dean,
are you talking about
D-E-A-N.
the angel Castiel?
Maybe Castiel, yeah. I don't watch the show. He says he's gay for Dean. And Dean doesn't respond, and then he dies, and they say that there's a room or something that Castiel has prepared something for him, or whatever, has prepared a place for him in heaven or something. And fans were up in arms because Dean never actually responded. He never said if he reciprocated or not.
Right.
Then it came out that in Spanish, Dean did in the Spanish translation, Dean did reciprocate. And a conspiracy happened that originally Dean was came out that Dean was supposed to reciprocate, but the network nixed it, so they put it in the foreign translations of it. That is almost certainly not what happened, and it was just a rogue translator who wanted to make their ship canon.
I'm sure.
But it's really funny. Now,
because there's
if
never
I
been
were
any
at
hint in
all
the series.
attached to Supernatural, I would probably be upset about this, but I am not, so I think it's very amusing.
I got my dad interested in Supernatural recently. It's been a lot of fun watching him enjoy the show.
I've watched, I think, 2 episodes of Supernatural. One of them was this Groundhog Day thing where Dean kept dying.
Oh, yeah, that was a fun one. I like that one.
That was a good episode. I have to admit, I did enjoy that when I watched it. And the other was something, I don't remember anything about it except that there was some sort of lesbian in it. It was not really very good.
See, I think that must be a later season because there's not a whole lot of lesbians in the first 5 or 6 seasons. The only one I remember is Felicia Day.
The first 5 seasons are considered the good seasons, and then after, because that's when they had a plan.
Right.
And it even told the complete story and all of that, and then it just kind of.
You hear that, guys? Our first 5 seasons are going to be pretty good. Season 6, immediately famously bad.
Exactly. Well, it depends. Do we have a plan for those seasons?
No.
There you go. We need a plan.
No,
it's planned.
No, the plan for the unofficial plan, the very unofficial and not at all detailed plan for Pinkerton's Ghost is something along the lines of 5 seasons.
In a movie.
So for
5 seasons in a movie.
Yeah, exactly. So for the people listening, and for fans of the series, we are discussing how it will end, and I think it's important that we do that now. And we do have it's a very vague and subject to change idea of where the story is going to go. Uh, we, however, the main plot lines that are going on in the series right now, which is the appearance of the Pinkertons, the mystery involving what's going on with Control, and whether or not Control can be trusted. Those two main threads. We do have an idea of how we're going. We have a pretty detailed idea of how we're going to resolve them. We do have an idea of where the next plot lines are going to go, and we have discussed how the series proper is going to end, which is very roughly planned to be around 5 seasons of Pinkerton's Ghost, with the possibility of doing things set in the same universe after that, if we want to.
Right.
But wrapping up our characters in roughly 5 seasons. Again, subject to whatever change we decide we think is a good idea in the meantime.
Subject to Netflix telling us, hey, we want more stories. Because we want to make a series.
Money, Netflix.
That's right. That's right.
I want to pitch us to anime studios, but yeah.
I'll take either. I'll chill.
I don't care, just as long as I get paid. So
That's right.
Here's the thing. Even though I do have a very careful eye on what we and our characters do, at the same time, I am a businessman, and I will be, doing things for money, and monetary reasons. There's no point.
Pinkertons can structure very well as episode of the week. If we had no overarching plot at all, Pinkerton's Ghost could function as a perfectly entertaining series.
Right.
Yep.
And it may end up going that way one day too, for all we know.
Like, everything's as designed. I know it sounds weird, but I'm careful with its overall design. I'm just not careful with the immediate details, because honestly, I don't have to be careful with the immediate details. Immediate details will sort themselves out.
That's right. That's just how it usually works.
So as far as how the series will end, like when I say we've discussed it, I mean like we have talked about, where our characters will end up, a vague idea of what we think will happen in the finale, but really no more detail than that, because it will all depend on what happens in between. We have discussed in more detail, in fact, in fairly considerable detail, what's going to happen in season 2. But we haven't had the official season 2 meeting yet. We're waiting for when we finish all of our episodes for season 1.
Right.
Before we do that, I think.
Yep.
I mean, obviously it's up to Ben, but
yeah, basically, I need you guys to have an idea of what you guys want to see, but I want the focus to be 100% on what season 1 finale will be up to.
Exactly. So we have discussed season 2. We have a decent idea of where we're going to go with season 2. We even have, in my opinion, a really cool idea for how we're going to end season 2. But we have not discussed any of the details yet, and we're not going to discuss the details of it until we handle season 1.
Yep.
I guess. But I think it's important to have an idea of where we're going. So,
absolutely.
And that includes all the way up to the end of the series and the ultimate fates of our characters. I will say that I won't tell you whether we'll have good or bad endings, but I will say that all three of us, that we are more than willing to give our characters bad ends if it comes to that. In fact, several of us have volunteered to do.
Hey, Jim hasn't suffered enough, in my opinion.
You can always suffer more.
You can always suffer more.
There are certain touchstones in Sean's life that I want to hit, but I might have written myself into a corner and it might be impossible. And I'm going to be very vague about that because I don't actually know what's going to happen. So, but there are things that I want to do with Sean. that I may have written myself into a corner with and may end up being impossible. Uh, Still, Sean is certainly going to suffer more because suffering is how you create conflict, and conflict is what makes good stories, at least in the West. We're not writing Kishout and Ketsus here. Uh, that's the Japanese storytelling structure that doesn't have any conflict for people who don't know.
I did not know, so thank you for explaining.
It's actually a pretty interesting idea. It's the structure which you see. The structure is used a lot in Miyazaki. He uses it in My Neighbor Totoro, Kiki's
Mhm.
Delivery Service, Spirited Away. Uses the structure, uh, and it can have a conflict. But basically, it goes Ki, which is the setup of the story.
Mhm.
You introduce the world, the characters, and what's going on. The Shao, which is the development of that concept and the expansion of it and world building and things like that. The the 10, which is the twist. It's something that happens in the third act that suddenly changes things or makes you look at them differently and changes the direction of the story,
Mhm.
and seemingly comes out of nowhere. And then the Ketsu, which ties the 10 with the Kishao. So a great example of this is My Neighbor Totoro. Key, we meet the main characters and we meet the family. They move to a house. They get situated. The Shao, we meet Totoro. They go on adventures with Totoro. The 10, Mei goes missing. The Ketsu, Totoro shows up with the cat bus who they met in the previous section, and they find Mei and they meet their mother, and everything wraps up. Perfect example of a Kishao and Ketsu.
See,
Interesting idea.
I could see that, because when it comes to certain fantasy and certain worlds, I often think to myself, I don't want to hear, I don't want to read about the conflict. I just want to immerse myself more in the world. For instance, Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archives has a fascinating world, and it's explored perfectly in book one. But every book after that kind of gets progressively worse and worse because the conflict isn't as interesting as the world he's built into it.
Yeah,
Sometimes I just want to be in the world.
I wonder if more Western writers couldn't find some use in utilizing the Kishout Ketsu concept.
Hmm.
But Miyazaki uses it it's almost like by the letter with My Neighbor Totoro.
Right.
Uh, you could follow those beats exactly. The 10 is very easy to spot. It's Mei goes
Mm-hmm.
missing.
Mm-hmm.
How it connects with the previous is that they find the cat bus and Totoro helps them find Mei. It's a
Uh-huh.
perfect, circle. It also fits very well in Kiki's Delivery Service.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Your Name is also actually a Kishout and Ketsu. Uh, you can have a conflict in Kishout and Ketsu story. There's no saying. It's not that you can't. It's that you don't have to. You can just forego it. Kiki's Delivery Service, interestingly, the original book did not have a conflict, and the movie actually added one. So the whole
Interesting.
the Zeppelin scene at the end of it was not in the
I don't
book.
remember it very well. I watched it in college, and that was 12, 13 years ago.
It's a good movie. It's not my favorite Miyazaki movie, but it's a good movie. But
Huh.
at the end of the movie, a Zeppelin goes haywire, and
Mm.
Kiki needs to borrow a broom and rescue her not boyfriend
Mm.
from falling from the Zeppelin.
Well, they're like
And
12, if I remember correctly, so sure, no
I'll be
problem.
right back, guys.
No worries.
and
Anthony, I can talk.
yep. Now we're on a topic that I am very comfortable with, which is Miyazaki, since I've written so much. I've written so much about Miyazaki, but in Kiki's Delivery Service, yeah, interestingly, that conflict at the end of it, where she has to rescue her not boyfriend from falling from the Zeppelin, was not in the original book. The author of the Kiki's Delivery Service book hated the movie, which did not stop her from capitalizing on its success to write a sequel.
Oh, of course. Should have been a fool not to.
Which is funny. Meanwhile, fans of Howl's Moving Castle were outraged at all of the changes that Miyazaki made to the book for his movie version.
So I know nothing about the book, but I really enjoyed the movie.
But the author of the book Howl's Moving Castle considered the movie a high compliment to her work.
Oh, fantastic.
So Diana Wynne Jones greatly enjoyed it, and the author of Kiki's Delivery Service hated the Kiki's Delivery Service movie, but fans seem to love the movie. So interesting how these things sometimes work out.
Well, hard to gauge how our authors are going to be. You lot are a very sensitive and highly egotistical bunch.
You're one of us now, Ken.
No! No! I'm
Also,
an actor.
This is I'm about to say, coming from an actor about egotistical and sensitive. That's
touche.
But and now you're both though, so
Oh, this is true. Ugh, I'm gonna
welcome
have to
to our
purge.
world.
Ugh.
The Kishaden Katsu is an interesting storytelling structure, and
Sure.
it would be I would be interested in seeing more Westerners utilize it. With that said, I don't think it fits very well in the Pinkerton's Ghost framework.
No, it'd be terrible.
Maybe for a one-off story, one day I will use it just as like an experiment. But I would need to really think that one over before I did, and I have no plans for it right now.
Right.
But it's cool to see. It's cool to see, and it's really interesting to spot sometimes too if you're paying attention. If you're looking for it, you know, finding that structure in Japanese works can be kind of interesting. Like in Your Name, you know, I am pretty sure that Your Name is also follows the Kishaden Katsu.
Huh. I remember that movie. That was actually really good. Wait, though there was a conflict though in that one.
There can be a conflict in a Kishaden Katsu. It doesn't need. Also, there really isn't a conflict until we get to the 10.
I mean, there's like two. There's some pretty central conflicts there. Right off the bat, it's you got a body swap episode, and they're
consider
trying to
this though. There is a body swap going on, but the body swap is not itself a conflict because it doesn't actually like. They're able to function with the body swap. It's not an immediate problem that they try and solve because they don't try and solve it for a long time. In fact, that's arguably a flaw of the movie.
Well, sure. And if anything, the guy is really excited about him swapping bodies with a really hot chick.
I wouldn't call that itself a conflict. The only conflict that eventually pops up is that we learn that the town of the girl, Mitsuha, gets destroyed by a meteor strike and Mitsuha dies. But
it's been 5 years, folks. There's a spoiler warning.
Yeah, right. But this doesn't pop up until like 3/4 of the way in the movie or that, or at least a little bit over half. So I would say that was probably the 10. So yes, there is a conflict, but it doesn't show up till later. And I still think that it fits the structure. Because again, Kishaden Katsu doesn't need to have no conflict. It doesn't need a. You can create a Kishaden Katsu movie with no conflict.
Gotcha.
Bear says, I have only listened to first 5 or 6 episodes, was waiting to binge on them, and then your production got ahead of me. Womp womp. Well, I'm glad that you're enjoying our story.
You know, you might have a long road trip that you got to work on at some point, and then you just need to have something to entertain yourself with. Exactly. I'd like to offer Pinkerton's Ghost as your time filler.
Yep. It's
and hey, since you've got 3 different authors, the writing style will never bore you.
It's true, actually. People
curious.
Commented on that.
Like Ben, I don't know what Berserker, the rope-a-dope of Berserker. I don't remember a story named Berserker.
I know Berserk,
I know what
but I don't know Berserker.
Sure, but if he's referring to a Pinkerton's Ghost story, I don't know which one he's referring to.
It could be the Keanu Reeves one.
Oh, rope-a-dope of... Okay, he's referring to the anime.
Oh,
okay.
Gotcha.
I assume Berserk then. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, the very last. Oh yeah, the very last episode or whatever of the 1990s anime was fantastic.
Never seen, never read Berserk, but I want to.
Anthony, if you watch it, do not watch the 2016 story. The animation will make you bleed from the eyes. But the 1990 version is very beautiful.
I've heard that the 90s show is good, and that the Golden Age, they call them, are pretty decent.
I've heard that too. I haven't watched it.
That they're not great, but they're decent.
Right.
And I've
if there was ever a series
that the manga is the best version of that story. So
if there's ever a series that really deserves a good adaptation, that I cannot understand why it hasn't gotten one, it's the Berserk series. I mean, yes, you're going to have to censor some things pretty heavily, but
right?
Still, because this is a story that 100% goes with the Japanese
the 90s adaptation.
Yeah. It absolutely goes with the Japanese tradition of pederasty, which is uncomfortable to say the least.
It does, but the flip side is that at least in Berserk, they're bad people.
Yes, it's true.
In fact, that's actually a big deal.
That's true.
Yeah.
That
It
is very
makes a
true.
bit. I remember reading there's a decent YouTube channel called Beyond Ghibli that's should be more famous, I think, because he's quite good. But he did a video on Berserk and the different adaptations of Berserk into various mediums.
Hmm.
And one of the things he said was that honestly, Berserk can get so dark and so intense and has so much like questionable content, like rape type stuff in it, that
Right.
it would be hard to recommend if it wasn't so good. But it's
Yeah,
so
I can see
good,
that.
it's actually easy to recommend,
Sure.
which I think is a good way of putting it. He's like, honestly, Berserk would be difficult to recommend if it weren't for the fact that it was fantastic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
the fact that it's fantastic makes it easy to recommend,
And frankly,
which
even
is an
even
interesting
the
way of
awful
putting it.
animation of the 2016 version, and it really is terrible. The story is so interesting that you almost want to forgive it.
You want to.
You
but
do, but and you
don't.
shouldn't. But still, it's like it's right there. You're like, ah, can I look past this? No, you can't. But you want to.
I mean, we know from Beastars in the modern day that CGI doesn't need to be bad.
Yeah, no
So,
familiarity with Beastars. I'm not super into furries.
oh man, you should watch Beastars. Beastars is amazing.
It's
It's
pretty good.
fantastic.
It's funny
I know
too
you guys keep
because
recommending.
whenever Lugosi tries to do any sort of like moralizing and whatnot, SJW-isms, people
Mhm.
like, dude, what are you saying? Like,
Ah,
what are you being crazy?
oh, that's
Let's see here.
Yeah, it's true.
Hmm?
It's true. You're right about that. That's pretty funny.
Let's see here. I need my thing to load. Oh, there we go. We did see. I did miss something here. Like you didn't know that they were marked, and you killed the mark. This is Minnow talking about the
mm.
marked of Cain thing, and you killed the
Mm.
mark guy, so the punishment is sevenfold to you. See, the
Mm.
problem with that is that it's too accelerationist.
Right.
Um, Anything that magnifies over time, like MHA is the only place I've seen really handle constant growth in their main character. Most places just don't really.
Mm.
Um, and I
I
kind of wish
find
it
it
was
interesting
different,
you
but
say that because one of the big criticisms of MHA is actually that Deku doesn't grow enough.
see,
Well, it's
here's
1 year. I mean, come on.
yeah, and it's like, how do you want him to grow? Like, become edgier or something? Like, that's not.
Well, I get the point. I get it to a point. It's the problem, quote unquote, with Deku as a main character is that he is the least interesting character in his own story. This is
This is
not an
true.
indictment of Deku, who was well written, and I think that he is certainly works as a main character. Uh, I think Deku works as a main character. I think he's well written. I think well designed, like that. And by that, I mean that Horikoshi knew what he was doing when he created him. You know, he had a very specific idea in mind. Deku is certainly of an archetype, but it's the same archetype filled by Luffy, filled by Asta, filled by Naruto. You
Yeah,
know,
but Luffy and
all of those.
Asta are all far more interesting, in my opinion.
Uh, I think Luffy is beloved, so it's say Asta. I don't know.
Asta basically has the same arc as uh, Deku. It's just he does so much more with it. Like he's also a former, no power that suddenly gains power.
I get you though.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't really follow. You could very well be right, but I think that Deku is a well. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
Like, I think that Horikoshi, when he created him, I think he has very. I think first off, Horikoshi is brilliant at creating characters. If anything, I think that My Hero Academia doesn't get credit for this.
Right.
That some of his characters and character development is just outstanding. Some of the best in the industry.
Absolutely.
Bakugo, Shigaraki, Endeavor, Todoroki are all wonderfully done. Deku, similarly, I think is done quite well. I just think he's such a simplistic character compared to the characters around him. There's only so much that you could do with him. I know that what people are frustrated with Deku is that he's always right.
Yes. Yeah, he
There's a
needs
little
to
bit
fail.
of
He needs to be
Mary.
wrong
There's a
once
little
in a
bit of
while.
Mary Sue-ness going on with Deku,
Yeah, everyone likes him, all that. Yeah, I can see that. Except for Bakugo.
and even Bakugo now is sort of like on his side, at
Yeah, that's
least in
true.
the manga. Bakugo has come around to his way of thinking and his side, and I sort of get that. Deku doesn't really grow or his philosophy at this point in the story is exactly the same as his philosophy when the story started. His way of thinking has not changed at all. With that said, I think, I mean, it's developed in certain ways and grown a little bit more nuanced, but the main premise of it, like the core of it, is the same. Whereas Bakugo has undergone significant development, Todoroki has undergone significant development. Uh, Even Ochako, to a lesser extent, even though she's been Horikoshi has been criticized for not using her enough, which I agree with. 'Cause I like Ochako and I would like to see her more. But even Ochako, like it would be, she's had some pretty significant development in the story.
Good for her. I
And
just remember
Deku
her
has
as
not.
the anime character that wanted to make life easier for her parents by getting a job.
Yep,
So wholesome.
that's her.
Yep, that's all
Uh,
I know about her character development.
She goes through more in the manga
Manga.
as time goes on. However, it is kind of subtle.
Good.
You'll hit it. The point is, though, that as far as Deku goes, and Shigaraki as well, I think that Deku is very well constructed in that everything about him, like, sense based on his backstory, what we know about him, right? Like, and that he functions in the story well as the main character. But that doesn't change the fact that he simply is the least interesting. Yeah. It doesn't make him bad. It makes him the least interesting. Because he just is. So I find it very interesting that you mentioned that it handles growth of the main character. Because I would argue that Deku has really grown that much. Because he sort of popped into the story fully formed.
Yeah, that's true. It really does play into his Mary Sue characteristics.
Here's the thing.
I'm being
though.
a little bit cheeky here. I'm not. I mean, he's not really a Mary Sue. I don't think. I think he's too well written to be a Mary Sue.
That's true.
He fails too much, and his
Yeah.
victories are too earned.
I can see that.
That's the thing. Like what I mentioned earlier about Legend of Korra is that she didn't really earn anything, but she got it anyway. And that's the sort of thing about it. Yeah, Deku earns, well, others don't. Cordell Mitchell says, I really enjoyed the Goblin Slayer anime, I guess, but I had to stop after all the rape and pederast behavior.
There's only just that in that first
Fair enough.
episode.
I don't remember the pederast behavior.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Because
Unless they were implying that he was raped by goblins, which I think they only implied it. They didn't actually show it. If they did,
I don't think he was raped by goblins. He was.
Yeah.
He might have been by something, but he was always.
I'll be honest. I never thought that Goblin Slayer was. Stop watching it.
I enjoyed it because it feels like a
didn't like it
D&D
very much.
episode or a D&D series.
Here's the thing: all of the people who I know in the community and whatever, they're all D&D players, and I am not, and I have no real interest in D&D because I don't think I'd have the patience for it. So everybody talking about like, oh man, it feels to me.
Well, it feels like an old D&D. It feels like 3.5 edition.
Yeah,
It doesn't feel like this
exactly.
new
And I think that's why
better,
so
nicer,
many of the
kinder
people,
version of it.
right? That's why so many people in the pulp rev and superversive community really gravitate towards it, and that means nothing to me.
Right. And that's why so
So
many of the same people that enjoy D&D 5th edition are looking at it saying, "Oh, this is horrible. This is terrible." Whereas all
Yeah,
the rest of us that have been
exactly.
playing Dungeons & Dragons for 20 years are like, "Yeah, this is great. This feels like our childhood."
Exactly. But I was just like, I don't know. I didn't
Sure.
hate it or
You're
anything.
still in your 20s. You've got a ways to grow.
Cordell Mitchell's, he sleeps with that 15-year-old chick he travels with her. That's what I interpreted. No, the Goblin Slayer,
no.
he's loyal to that chick at home.
Yeah, and
Goblin
there is no
Slayer
hanky-panky
is,
between those two characters.
Oh, he is incel all the way. He is
Absolutely.
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't you worry. He doesn't. So like, even though there are several characters who are very interested in him, he canonically hasn't had sex with anybody.
Right.
Uh,
He just wants to kill goblins,
Goblin
like
Slayer
Chad.
simp for the farm girl.
he will simp for the farm girl, but honestly, wouldn't you simp for a pure
Oh,
maidenly
yes.
farm girl?
Absolutely.
Of course,
She's
wait-
gorgeous.
he's doing the right thing.
Yep.
Also, I will say
And one day they will get married.
the Goblin Slayer abridged on Grimjack on the YouTube channel is hysterical. They absolutely play up the D&D story aspect of it by having all
I
the
will
other
say
party
there is
members.
one thing about Goblin Slayer that bothers me, and always they talk about how dirty he is, and his armor is not dirty at all. It is perfectly fine, normal-looking armor. What are they
But you
talking
didn't get into
about?
the series.
I
thought you
watched
said
the first
constantly you
couple,
have
I watched the first couple episodes.
Okay.
I watched like the first 2 episodes. They were complaining, they go, yeah, it's this guy with the dirty armor. No, it's not. It looks fine. Like, why does
Yeah.
everybody keep saying that? I'd honestly, it would have been funny if in a bridge they mentioned. It would have been funny if he goes, why does everybody keep calling my armor dirty? It's just armor. I clean it. It looks fine. I never understood that.
So
Because it's got tears and rents and damage.
yep, it's
Well,
not as
yeah,
bad
but
as
it doesn't.
it's not like, so here's the thing, it's not that it isn't like, it's cheap, it's serviceable, it's dirty, but that doesn't mean it doesn't function.
Right.
And they're basically
you see in
making
the-
fun of him because he's a poor.
Right.
That's it. That's
I
that's the
getcha.
dread secret.
Exactly. Because you see in the series the other people that are the same rank as he is in the guild, and they're all decked out in actual awesome armor and stuff like that because they're killing things that aren't goblins. Well, he's rocking equipment that's perfectly designed for goblin killing because that's all he cares about.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't have anything against Goblin Slayer or anything like that. I just never got into it.
Season 2's coming out for that, isn't it? Isn't that it's this
Probably.
upcoming
I
season?
can't remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll be looking forward to that.
No.
Oh, they just finished season 2 of Quintessential Quintuplets, so I'm heartbroken.
It'll be a long.
That was my
time.
favorite trashy series.
Yeah. I'm actually like, I've got Beastars loaded on my computer, but I haven't really watched it. Honestly,
Mm.
like, I kind of want to watch Skate the Infinity, but I'm probably just gonna watch the dub when I can binge it. I'm watching Final Space, which is pretty good. Like, it's, like, I've been watching a lot less. I watch more. Reopen the closed tab. There we go. I watch more things about like writing and philosophy and stuff like that, or just sit
Sure.
around listening to future funk. And I have gotten a really good mix by Ritual of Light, which I will link
Send
in
me
the
that.
chat.
Yes.
Rogue Astronomer says, I didn't get that from the anime. It's a long-running joke that Goblin Slayer is only interested in slaying goblins. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
he's running on full incel power. Like, he's hit year 30 or so, year 25 as an incel, and he hasn't developed magic yet, but he's getting there. I actually joked, because I am part of John C. Wright's quasi D&D thing he does for his high tier super action team slum people. I made jokes at Della Zarkel's expense that because he is like, well, yes, I must keep myself away from women to preserve my powers and to not cause too much traffic with the darker powers. I'm like, so you're an incel. Ha! I'm playing Aeneas, and I constantly mention how I miss my wife and stuff like that. But then it's like, this wizard, powerful enough for whatever XYZ, and it's like, ha, ha, ha. I've got no respect for wizards.
In my campaign, the entire time I've been playing a dwarf that's, the typical Scottish Gimli hybrid, and of course, he's the fun-loving, kind of stupid, super strong, mildly violent character, and all the rest of my party has been hating me this entire time because they think, oh, Ken is not putting in any effort into this character. Well, last session I finally revealed, oh no, this entire time I've just been acting that way because my character's wife died horribly to a orc invasion, and so yeah, all my bloodthirstiness has been 100% with the purpose of getting revenge. I made a few of them cry when I gave the story. I was really
Aw.
pleased with that. I know.
You Californians are weak. I'm gonna
They
walk
really
over
are.
there and flex, and it's like, oh no, he's
It's not gonna be
fat.
hard.
We haven't seen a Missouri thin person yet. But then it's like, no, they're actually police and stuff running around, so I can't just take over as much as I want to.
You probably could actually. You don't understand California. It's a lot easier than you think it is.
So, like, can I just declare my own autonomous zone?
Yes, but it has to be outside of Los Angeles County.
Okay. Okay.
Mostly, you want it to be outside of Los Angeles County, frankly.
I mean, yes, keep out the riffraff.
Yes, exactly.
Let's see here. Bradford Walker is still waiting for more record of the Lodos War, which he considers the D&D anime. I don't know enough about that.
I don't either.
Which is a pity.
I've never seen it, I'm afraid.
I'm going to mark that on my Crunchyroll list, though, because that sounds interesting.
I don't know. Like, I don't like D&D anime or shows or whatever. And I'm not a big fan.
And yet you like Goblin Slayer.
I love Goblin Slayer because it's not about the D&D or whatever. It's
True.
about the
Goblin slaying.
about the goblin slaying. Like, no, it's like, here's the thing. Most people use D&D ideas to cover up issues that they might have.
Right.
And compensate for what's not actually there. Like like somebody wrote that snarky banter and witty dialogue isn't actual character development.
Right. So
know,
Marvel.
Well, yes.
Every Marvel movie.
You know, it's a real thing. You know, and for the same way, like, I wouldn't put up with Sean or Jim or Jack snarking too much. Or if they did snark, somebody's going to punish them. Like, I have
Sure.
Jack snark at Mordred and Lieber Demont in The Wild Hunt, and Mordred breaks his wrist. I
really like that.
I didn't say that he broke his wrist, but, like, you know, Mordred was already snarking at the guy. He didn't need backup.
Well, Sean speaks. I don't know if snark is the right word, but Sean speaks with a lot of cynicism, I guess is a better word.
Yep.
So Sean, sometimes in the heat of battle, he'll make sarcastic comments towards people, but that's mostly it. I don't know if I would call it snarking at them so much as Sean is extremely cynical and and uses gallows humor.
Yeah, I can see
About
that.
the desk out. Been a lot funnier.
One thing that will be interesting is that currently Sean is operating under a spell of protection under Morgana. For the first story after, and this will probably be the beginning of season 2, and when that spell is inevitably lifted, and I don't think it's a spoiler to say that the spell is going to be lifted just for dramatic reasons, that would be storytelling 101. I am going to have to put in an effort to make it clear that, you know, think Sean isn't in Kansas anymore, type of thing. So it's going to be interesting. Probably, I'm thinking out loud right now, so this is not a spoiler because I literally don't even have anything plotted yet. But probably Sean is going to get pretty badly injured in the first story after this occurs. So episode 1 of season 2, I guess.
If people
Sean is going to...
Sorry.
Yeah, Sean's going to end up getting pretty badly injured.
If you guys pay attention, I actually injure Jack all the time.
You do.
I did notice that. Jack gets Jack kind of gets the crap beaten out of him
routinely. I guess Jim does too, just not nearly as bad as Jack does.
Sean does not, but there is a reason for it.
Yes.
So that's why I mentioned that I'm going to go out of my way in, I guess, episode 1 of season 2, because like I said, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that
this spell will come off, because that's kind of a writing 101 thing, up the
Right.
stakes, right?
Right.
And when this spell of protection comes off of Sean, I'm going to have to do something to make that clear. So Sean's probably going to get pretty badly injured.
Right.
I hope it's with a vampire, since he's been waltzing his way through vampires thus far. Like making a vampire actually be what hurts him in the future would be interesting. Not blood money, or even that could up the stakes of blood money.
The point of Forests of Fear was to show that Sean has become more confident, and also that Sean has been preparing him, has thrown himself even more into training and the lifestyle of a Pinkerton. So you're seeing in Forests of Fear a particularly competent Sean. You're also going to see a particularly competent Sean in the finale, I think, though maybe not quite so much. However, Sean is... I'm trying to think of what to say that wouldn't spoil too much. Sean will do well for himself in the finale. In his finale.
Right.
Then we're going to get to our big, our finale, right? Where we all meet up.
Right, the season finale.
That's coming, and that, again, I think Sean's probably going to do well for himself, which is why season 2, I'm going to make a point of beating up on Sean a little bit more.
People who don't understand authors must think we're psychopaths.
Possibly. I mean, at this point in the story, there are story reasons, both in story, Doylist, you should say, Watsonian and Doylist reasons, for Sean to be doing particularly well for himself right now. The Watsonian reason is the spell of protection that's on him, the fact that he's just undergone extra training with old Tom and things like that. The Doylist reason is that right now I am making an effort at making Sean seem more competent, because Sean is canonically the least experienced of the 3 Pinkertons. And that's like an actual major part of his character. How season 2, without the spell of protection, Sean is going... I don't know if he's going to face tougher threats necessarily, but I'm going to make a point of showing that, things are going to get difficult. Bear says spoilers. Well, kind of. I like to think that the spoilers that I've revealed are stuff that anybody who knows anything about storytelling could tell was going to happen.
That said, Bear, Anthony has absolutely no compunction giving you spoilers on anything he feels.
I really don't. I don't care.
I think
the spoiler culture is dumb. So, there's that too.
I did find it hilarious with the whole, like, Snape killed Dumbledore stuff that happened back in the day.
Well, when ER started off his review of Last Jedi with Luke dies, and then he put spoiler right after that. He just has the video in big done, does the Star Wars music, and then just says Luke dies in big letters, and then after that he puts in parentheses spoiler.
Oh, that's great.
So that's pretty much my attitude towards spoilers. I think that the whole the whole spoiler culture is pretty dumb. Y'all should meet up on
culture's dumb, but at the same time, I mean, actively giving away the purpose and twist of a story that still has just come out is kind of annoying.
It's Ken Vance too.
Yes, Ken Vance. Stop spoiling my stories, Anthony.
We're basically making
Anthony's
whole culture. I'm going to show up. He's going to be watching something, and I go, the only good way to write this story, and he's like, Ben, don't do it. The only good way to write this story is for the main character not to get with the girl. And he just throws down his laptop, looks it up on TV tropes, doesn't get the girl, and he, like, kicks me out while I'm visiting him or whatever.
Yes, I will do that too. Yes.
That's what says y'all should meet up on a diner, and a space-time rift forms in the parking, making the scene the restaurant at the end of the universe.
Well, that's an interesting idea.
In the finale. Good idea, but we do have an idea of where we're going in the finale, so...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it
should be fun.
I've got a few ideas on how I want to play with it, because I don't want it to be too obvious. But, no, if you've only gotten 5 or 6 episodes in, you haven't hit Nighthawk Riders yet, where I established that there is a restaurant just off kilter from the universe. center of all existence, basically, and it's in Art Nouveau, because God has good
Mhm.
taste. Um, with the best girl Slimy Hagar.
Yeah, I
And
actually really liked Nighthawk Rider. I didn't listen
Yeah, I did
to it
too.
till several weeks after you put out, like
I
a
give
couple
you
weeks ago.
guys
I
the
heard it.
scripts to read. There's
Hey.
nobody who can edit me,
I never read the script because I know I'm going to be editing your audio.
but I need.
I forgot about it. I probably did read it. Forgot about it. And then I watched it again, but I did watch the video.
We had a video?
I'm talking about the the
Oh, the actual
episode,
right, got
yeah,
it.
the episode,
Right,
and
right.
I greatly enjoyed it. So
Good.
Nighthawk Rider was one of the better ones,
Yep.
in my opinion.
I have a.
Also, probably the weirdest episode of all of them, which is saying a fair bit, I guess.
True,
Nighthawk
but I
Rider.
love it. It was great.
Weird. Who
It's a
knew?
pretty weird episode.
Yeah, it is kind of a weird episode. I guess weird episodes for me though is like the weirdest episode I've
Tuesday?
probably written. What? Yes, you're right. Is Chronos Heart.
Yeah.
Like explicitly weird.
Chronos' Tomb, I thought, right?
Yeah,
Is that what
yeah,
you mean?
Chronos' Tomb. Excuse me.
That's actually my favorite Jack episode. So
Yep. But like, I played around with that. You haven't gotten to that one yet, but you're in for a treat. Weird episodes for Jim. Probably Mermaid Song.
Yeah, that's true. That's the most out there.
Sean's
I enjoyed that
episodes
one.
are
That was fun.
relatively normal, comparatively, which
That's
again is intentional because Sean should be facing relatively the smallest scale threats. The
Right.
weirdest is probably for the man who has nothing.
Yep.
That
not
is
much
fairly.
to it, though.
I'd say that's fairly strange.
Yeah. Mystery Meat kind of.
I like Mystery Meat. That's a fun
the
one.
ending of Mystery Meat kind of edges it out a little bit, but just because
The ending of Mystery Meat's pretty funny. I came up with.
right,
So Mystery Meat was Ken's idea, and it was. I want to do a story that's set on a farm. Mystery Meat is canonically set in my hometown, but I renamed it, of course, and changed the names of people around it. However, the geographical landmarks and the general layout of the town is based on my hometown in Mystery Meat, and I wanted to do something set on like a farm and in a farming community, which is near where I live. So that's why I want, and I mentioned that to Ken and Ben. I said, somebody give me an idea to use for that. Ken said, growing people in vats.
Yes.
I'm like, actually, that's pretty good. I could probably do something with that. So
I think I was watching Promised Neverland at the time, so I thought this is a fantastic idea.
that's possible. That makes sense. So Mystery Meat's pretty fun, and the ending of Mystery Meat, though, I will take my own credit for the final twist of Mystery Meat, which I thought was pretty funny when I wrote it. So I don't know.
What's
Always
funny
take
is
credit for your ideas.
I like building up on and making sure that like things we do have effects. So in a future episode, to your perspective, Foo Bear, is in Long Pigs, one of the most recent Jack Morrow episodes. A executive like, somebody's here. He looks over. It's a Pinkerton. He set this place to blow. We got to get out of here. Like as his first reaction is, oh no, he's gonna burn this
Not
place
again.
to the ground.
Not again. Another one.
We're insured, but like do it. And then like I had another character,
Still inconvenient.
right? I had another character be like, so you burnt the place down? Yes, the place with all the strange chemicals that turned pigs into humans. Yes. You let the gas escape into the atmosphere. Yes. I hate you. I thank you. Like he's like, because like in Geisterhounds, I actually have it break protocol. Usually when they're moving dangerous gases, it's like half a regiment goes out.
Right.
They shut down the roads. Nobody else is allowed to be on the roads or even within the roads while they're moving the gas. They have
Right.
armed guards outside of houses. Like, it's one of those things where it's a big production.
Right.
And so it's like, no, like, it's just a thing by itself. So I later have in Nighthawk Rider a guy go, yeah, so that commander who sent out the Geisterhound gas got court-martialed to hell, and it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Oh, it's a secret paranatural gas. Nobody knows about this. We don't have to defend it like the rest of it. And it's like, no, yes, you do. This thing turns people into coral. Like, what are we supposed to do with it?
Oh, epic.
Oh, can I mention the April Fool's Day episode?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Talk about the April
that's
Fool's
gonna be
Day.
a great one.
I want people, so I've mentioned this to Ben and Ken. I really want people to comment on this episode because I am very curious what people will think of it. I think it's hilarious, and I think our vocal performances in it are hilarious.
Yes.
All four of us who are doing it.
Yep.
That means we have one special guest.
Special
Ooh.
guest.
Who could it be?
Doo-doo-doo.
All the way from Romania, we have the real Count Dracula. No,
Da
I'm
da
kidding.
da.
Without going into, I'm not going to talk about this one because I really want I want people to go, "What the hell is this?" when they see it, and I want people to have no clue what they're getting into. But Ben
Look at
wrote
that.
it.
Anthony
It's
does believe in
hysterical.
spoilers at some point.
He does.
Yeah, every now and then. I really want people to just go, "What the hell is this?" I hope people react to it, and I hope people are as amused by it as I am. So if you listen to the episode, please leave a comment, because I am curious what people will say and will think.
We thrive on feedback.
Yes.
Also, yes, feedback gives us anime power-ups.
And honestly, criticism too, because frankly, if we do something that you're not super keen on, or you think, hey, you could do this better, honest criticism is always a good thing.
Ken speaks for himself. Don't criticize my.
Ken likes criticism.
Like, so I do like criticism.
Ken likes criticism. I just want praise.
So, like, speaking as, like, kind of the leader of this thing. Wait, I am the leader.
Kind of the leader of Ben.
Right. Of myself, is that, like, as the leader, I get the least amount of criticism out of everyone. So I have to be doubly careful of how I do things, as well as, just kind of like beg for it. Like let's see here.
I mean, you guys have already heard Anthony and I don't judge the scripts too harshly because we're terrified of them.
Right. As he should be. The power level on my scripts are amazing.
No,
So
in-
9,000.
in all seriousness, I appreciate Ben. If Ben were harsh on my script, I would appreciate that, honestly. So I don't mind harshness when done by when my editor looks at my scripts necessarily, especially because most of the time, if Ben's being particularly harsh on a script, and that hasn't really happened yet, but if it did, can guarantee you that I would know in advance that my script was garbage.
He would feel it. He would feel it in
Yes.
the atmosphere. He would see
I would
me.
feel it when I finished it, and I've done that a couple of times too. I would say there have been stories I finished where I've shown it to Ben and said, "Dude, I am not happy with this."
Then he says, good, you shouldn't be.
Right. I've said that at least once. So one time I was teaching this kid how to play card games, and he was really disrespecting my time, and I respect that you guys respect my time. And he was disrespecting my time, so I'm like, okay, dude, we've done this a lot. You've tried to be trained under me, but you're not taking it seriously. You have to play the game in a basic level, and you cannot make 3 basic mistakes. You don't have to win. I'm a very good player. So I ignore the first mistake just because obviously this kid's going to be under pressure. This is just procedure. Like, I play the game on reflex. I don't even know the rules. That's how reflexively I play the game. But I know when somebody's cheating. So anyway, I make 3 mistakes. I'm not playing with my best deck. I'm not playing harshly. I go, okay, dude, stop. We hadn't even gotten to like the mid game, and I go, you've already made 3 mistakes. I will not be teaching you anymore. And he
Ooh.
started crying.
Ah!
And I went without blinking. I said, if you're going to cry, do it in private in the bathrooms. And he went and did it. And obviously people heard about it, and it's like, listen, Ben's an a-hole. But that's just like another level. So yeah, I've made a simp weak guy cry.
Oh,
Well.
That's amazing.
Please tell me he was at least under 18.
No.
Oh, he wasn't a child.
No, he
Oh,
was in
man, that's
college.
rough. Oh man.
Oh,
No,
amazing.
it was bad.
Even
like,
better.
Like, it was one of those things where I enjoyed it, but it was like, oof.
Mm.
So how was he disrespecting your time? I'm curious.
He
I don't
would-
know what specifically.
He
that
wouldn't
means.
listen to the things I say. He wouldn't spend time to actually learn how to play the game, and he stood me up twice. So I said,
Oh, I
this is
see.
unacceptable. Especially
I
because I
getcha.
was kind of working a dead-end, crappy job at a call center. Like, honestly, people like might say, oh, if I wish I could go back then. Sure, there's a part of me that wishes I could go back to being a kid, whatever. I'm Gen Y, that desire is always there. But at the same time, I recognize that this year is the best year of my life, as was 2020, except for the first 2 weeks, where I lost my job, my girlfriend, and my publisher in 1 week.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
And I'm not going to comment on the job or the girlfriend or the publisher, but it's like, because it was messed up. But like, it was like just 1 week of just pain, and then the rest of it was just me working a job at a gas station where people loved me even though they knew I was quirky as shit. So it all works out.
See?
And 2019 was one of the
works out.
best years. And it's like, this year's going to be a good year, or maybe it won't be a good year, and I'll end up martyred because I refuse to take the mark of the beast.
Then it would
It's
be
a
a
great
great
year.
year.
Then it would be a great year, but like I won't see it until I'm dead. Like, what is it? Dying is easy, martyrdom's hard. So, it's when it comes to critique and stuff like that of my stuff, I'm very careful with my stuff. Like, I'm probably gonna rewrite my next episode. Just not all the way. I do like parts of it, and I like that the villain is a voodoo statue mecha, piloted by a tiny voodoo doll. After Jack fights him and his 4 brothers, and then I switch it up so that he fights. So he's captured by Grigory Horvarth, which I imply was by the statue reaching into its black hole pot and ripping it inside out. It's a force so powerful it blinds him and just like breaks him apart. Like, Jack is like on the floor bleeding, and he's captured. Like, that's how much it took. And then in the next episode, I actually have it down for a bit where they talk with each other, since I do need to explain what's going on. I explicitly say what is going on in clear language. I still need to finish this episode, but I think the final boss. So I'm gonna have 2 like supernatural like horror events happen. One is Grigory Horvarth's daughter will have torn out one of her own eyes for a cockatrice eye, as well as removed one of her removed her eyelids around it so she doesn't accidentally turn herself into stone. And she's going to be kind of a witchy girl. I'm going to be using a couple different places because detective, and I need to make sure Jack has a rogues gallery. And then the second one will be a villain sorcerer who will send shadow hounds after Jack as he makes his escape from Grigory. Sure, there's going to be a bit of talking, but the end will be a very nice chase in the woods, which will end with him calling Sean and Jim to action, which will lead directly into the season finale, where all 3 characters will meet and chat with each other and describe each other, how each other views each other. It'll be great.
Yay!
It's going to be fun to do. I'm looking forward to our interactions.
Can't wait.
and it's also going to be changed up based on uh, how it's also going to be changed up. I'm trying to think of the right words for this. It's also going to change up how people view it. Like Jack is going to have some dialogue heavy, but it's kind of going to be a bit more stinted. But like I expect Sean to have the most dialogue between the characters, just because Jack doesn't want to talk about. Hey, you guys want some McDonald's? Yeah. Yeah, all right. We'll stop for some McDonald's. I know a good place, and like where they're driving. Like Jack is just going to be sitting there in his thing, flicking a lighter while he drives in a non-conspicuous tank of a car called the Unismasher, and it's going to be awkward because Jack isn't a conversationalist. So it's like one of those things where it's like the personality of the characters are going to change, and the writing it focuses is going to change. Like Jack is going to get separated while they examine the Pinkerton offices. Spoilers. And he's going to face a horror, and then Jim's going to do the next episode at the next station, and he's going to face a horror, and then Sean's going to bring it all together, face a horror of sorts, and then we're going to separate out our challenges one. And I'm pacing it out very carefully. Then
So I'm curious, Ben. I'll ask you now, live on air, first time.
Mhm.
How many episodes will we be writing for this finale?
One each.
Just one each?
Yep.
Okay,
So each
fantastic.
So each of us will have one specific set piece of a horror, because this is a horror podcast, anthology
Naturally.
series, whatever. But also I expect all of ours to be like 5,000 words.
Right.
As horrible as it is to say it, like things are actually going pretty good. I've got half of my last episode written, and then I'm going to write my episode. So we're ahead of the game as much as possible. I'm still waiting on one episode from each of you. Written, that is.
Right.
We've got, and it just works out, like we've got an episode between us actually having to do the serious last episodes. And of course, I'm always there for you guys if you need me. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And then we get like vaguely 3 weeks of break, but no, we're not going to use them for break. Because I'm not.
Planning.
Because it's going to be planning and writing episodes, and I gotta, I'm always leading the things in, so I got my own thing I gotta write, and my season 2 start is going to be absolutely amazing.
As it should.
And it's like you guys are going to be amazing too, because I'll beat it into you.
My season 2, I'm excited about. It should be. I think it's going to be a very good episode. It will involve, and drumroll, time travel.
Oh,
The second Pinkerton's ghosts with time travel.
Mine's not really time travel.
I remember what mine is. I've
there's
forgotten.
Yeah, but there is. It's just small scale. This is large scale time travel. We're talking centuries, baby.
That's true. If you put in even one paradox, Anthony, off comes the belt.
Yay!
No, Daddy, please.
Oh no.
Oh no, Daddy, please. All right.
Okay, well that's all we got.
Isn't it amazing how depending on what you emphasize changes the whole meaning of a sentence? Fascinating.
Wow.
You've been a great audience.
All right. I don't see any more questions popping up. I want to thank you all for getting there. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for being such a wonderful audience. And thank you, Cordell Mitchell, for being our patron. We will not be doing it the same way as in the future, though we will do another more lively Q&A like now when we do get more patrons. But I will send you a message asking you for questions, and I will send you a video response based on the need of the questions. Because that is the promise, because we fulfill our patronage as much as possible.
I'm sorry, I'm just reading Rick Farwell, Tonka Saw, Daddy, no.
And our patron is satisfied. Thank you for coming. Thank you both for being here. And look forward to our April Fool's release, which will
be epic.
It'll be
Gonna be
absolutely
lit,
enjoyable.
fam.
Lit, fam. Just so
Yeets.
you know, I will be releasing the April Fool's episode on April Fool's Day. So unfortunately, there will be no early access, but it will be on Thursday.
Will we also be having a Friday episode? Or is it just the April
no,
Fool's week?
absolutely not. Double episodes? Oh, I can't do it.
No. The editing is just driving me crazy.
Fubar, I banned Patreon for reasons. We also use Subscribestar, and I'm waiting for the day we have an unauthorized subscription. Someday. You should be uploading
Subscribe Star. Look up
Subscribe
Subscribe
Pinkerton's
Star.
Ghost at Subscribe Star. All right, goodbye. Bye.
Bye, friends.